Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and the Schumer shutdown is fully underway, and lo and behold, Chuck Schumer further sticks his foot in his mouth, and John Barrasso comes in with the receipts. This isn't going to look good for the Democrats here. Let's dive in.
All we are doing is reflecting what the American people already want. Nothing more, nothing less. They want us to sit down and negotiate something real that takes this huge, huge burden off their shoulders. And Donald Trump, instead of acting like an adult, he's the most immature president we have ever had. Instead of doing something to stop the health care crisis, is threatening to hurt countless hardworking Americans. Let me repeat the quote Donald Trump said yesterday. We can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible. They're bad for them and irreversible, like cutting vast numbers of people out, cutting things they like, cutting programs they like. Donald Trump says it loud and clear. That's one thing about him. He is using the American people as pawns, threatening pain on the country as blackmail. Well, that's not going to work. The American people, it's so easy to see through those tactics. They know this is the Trump shutdown. They know Republicans control the presidency, the Senate, and the House. And what is done during the shutdown will fall squarely on the Republicans' back. Donald Trump even says it. He says he is going to close down all these things people want.
Well, Senate Democrats have now dragged us into the Schumer shutdown. When I say us, I mean all of us as Americans. Didn't have to happen. And it certainly doesn't need to continue. Americans are overwhelmingly against the shutdown of our government. This is a direct attack on hardworking American taxpayers who voted against wasteful Washington spending in the elections in November. Think back to previous continuing resolutions just like this one. You can think back to 13 of them during the time Joe Biden was in office at the White House. 13 of these passed. The minimum number of votes was 65. We voted to keep the government open, bipartisan. When Joe Biden and Barack Obama were president, Democrats said shutdowns were dangerous, destructive, and desperate. That's the word of the Democrats. Dangerous, destructive, desperate. Listen to those words. That's what Chuck Schumer said. He said, passing a clean CR would avert a harmful and unnecessary government shutdown. He also said if a government shuts down, it'll be average Americans who suffer the most. But yesterday he stood here in the well and then voted to shut down the government. Senator Patty Murray of Washington is the top Democrat on the Senate Appropriations Committee. She has said a shutdown solves nothing. She went on to say, and it hurts everyone. Yesterday, she voted to shut down the government. Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts said that a shutdown, quote, is the last resort for those who can't otherwise win their fights through elections and can't win their fights in Congress. Well, yesterday, she voted to shut down the government. Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut said, quote, there is a time and a place to debate health care, but not when the funding of the federal government and all the lives that are impacted by it hang in the balance. Well, yesterday, he voted to shut down the government. Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota is a member of the Senate Democrat leadership. She said, shutdowns are not good for the economy. Yesterday, she voted to shut down the government. Senator Brian Schatz of Hawaii said, I've seen the same thing over and over again. He said, shutdowns don't work. No one wins, but Americans have a lot to lose. Yesterday, he voted to shut down the government. Those were Senate Democrat words when there was a Democrat in the White House. Yet last night, when it mattered, Democrats ignored their own warnings. Either their memories are short or their principles are situational. Mr. President, when he was majority leader, Senator Schumer broke that process, the appropriations process. Last year, the Senate Appropriations Committee passed, the committee not Chuck Schumer, but that committee passed 11 of 12 appropriations bills, many of them unanimous, always bipartisan. And what happened? Senator Schumer let each and every one of them rot and die in his Senate desk drawer. He shut down the appropriations process, and now he wants to shut down the government.
When Senator Barrasso is telling you how to behave, and he brings the receipts, you need to listen. See, every senator sort of has their own niche, and they have these specific roles because the Senate has a bit of a higher standard than the House does. There's less senators, therefore higher standards. So when you're asked to behave in a certain way, or at least be ideologically consistent, John Barrasso is going to remind you of that. It's like going up to Senator Kennedy. When you want to know what actually is, that dude has a better grip on reality than any of us. He's also funnier. When you want to talk the Constitution, you go to Ted Cruz. When you want to talk about legal processes, you go to Josh Hawley. And when you want to talk about policy, you talk to Tom Cotton. But when it comes to behavior, and I know I'm not saying this for the third time, but there's a reason I'm doing it. Because he's calling out his own Democrat colleagues. These guys, the way legislators work up on the Hill is that they'll call each other out every now and then, but for the past 40 years or so, everyone knows how to get along better. Particularly after there was sort of a big realignment during the Reagan years. And the Democrats started realizing that their old tactics weren't going to work. Things need to change. We've got to dial down the rhetoric and the tone from the 60s and 70s. And that's been pretty good for the past 40 or so years. But there's been an undercurrent. And this is where I think the real problem and the real reason we're having a shutdown. If you're 64 years or older, you probably want to listen to this one. The Department of Justice just went after 3 of the biggest Medicare providers, all for claiming that they were unbiased, while allegedly steering seniors into plans that provided them the best kickbacks. This just goes to show you can't trust any old Medicare provider to have your back. But navigating Medicare alone, that can be a total nightmare. That's why I want you to know about Chapter. They flip the script on the system by comparing every Medicare plan, not just the ones that give them the highest kickbacks. That's how they help people save, on average, $1,100 per year. If your plan's already the right fit, they'll tell you. And if there's a better plan out there, they'll help you switch. So if you're ready to fight against a rigged system, call Chapter today and get advice from people in your corner. There's been an undercurrent of those same lefty-style Democrats that started off their days in Woodrow Wilson or FDR's administrations, and they want to return to those days because deep down they truly believe that a highly bureaucratic society with a big social safety net run by these good little bureaucrats who know better than the Congress, and of course know better than you, the American taxpayer, their own constituents, and make the decisions for you and for the economy in a way that probably doesn't have your best interest at heart. And we've seen that coalition completely break down, not once but twice. Barack Obama rebuilt that coalition, but ever since people started realizing that this nonsense doesn't work, that flooding our country with illegal immigrants doesn't work, that throwing on a massive spending bill after we had just flooded the economy with a bunch of extra cash in order to keep the economy from complete collapse, that worked. And then Joe Biden came in and pushed for an even bigger spending bill that pushed our inflation from already rising to skyrocketing. This is what I mean when I say Democrats can't govern. And so the American people, particularly independents and blue-collar workers, people that used to be a huge chunk of the Democrat coalition, they've realized that they've seen the nonsense. There's a reason that there's been a Republican surge in the Midwest and in Pennsylvania. They're starting to realize out there that we've let Democrats run things and it doesn't work. And now that's why the New Jersey election, it now seems like it's in play. The only reason Democrats are gaining anywhere is because they're gaining out west in places like Colorado, turning it even more blue. And they're gaining in Virginia, where you have all these government workers and contractors who are interested in keeping government as bloated as possible. So you're seeing already the big problems. The people that want a bloated government who also know that that means that they're going to get either kickbacks or they're going to get extra power and extra abilities, and they get to push their agenda farther forward because of it. And that is a huge chunk of the Democrat primary voter now. And I haven't even begun to talk about how the mainstream media has bought into this nonsense because they've realized that by getting this sort of outrage and feedback loop, they get more clicks, more views, and more people start to believe it. After all, you tell a story 100 times, becomes the truth. And that's what we're up against. That's what we do here. We're trying to speak out against the mainstream media, the left stream media. Again, thank you, Rudyard Lynch, from the channel What If Altist. I think I need to start really calling it the left stream media because they keep on talking about these things. That's why I'm wearing this shirt, Defund the Media. It is a simple concept because not only have we found that government seems like they fund a big chunk of our media, but it's this ugly feedback loop where the media says the government is good over and over and over again, and then we keep finding out that no, turns out that not only is our government shady, it's not even looking after our best interests. It's looking after it for their interest and their power base because they're obsessed with playing power games. And that's why Chuck Schumer is forced to tell his people to stand down, don't cross the aisle. We've had 3 Democrats so far cross the aisle, and of course John Fetterman is one of them. And again, guys like Fetterman keep my belief in the Democrat Party alive. And I shouldn't be believing in the Democrat Party, but I have to. We live in an America where there are essentially just 2 parties. And you look underneath that rock and all of a sudden things get even uglier and slimier. But Chuck Schumer knows that if he doesn't keep the crazies in his own party, or the loony wing, as Senator Kennedy had called it, he knows that if he doesn't get these people, if he doesn't throw red meat to them, give them an opportunity, he's playing with fire. But those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. My name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Till then, y'all have a good one.